to get this meeting done tonight. Excellent. So can I get a call to order for this meeting, this January 17th, 2022? I'd like to acknowledge that the offices of the Wilfrid Laurier Students Union is located on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people. As for regrets, I've received one from Director May, who is unable to be here tonight due to work obligations. We are also missing Director Bryant and Director McCarthy. However, we have not received any word from them. So we can move on next to the adoption agenda. So can I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented with the amendment to move the approval of the meeting minutes for November 24th board meeting to after the board governance practice ad hoc committee report? Motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Shantok. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, all is in favor. Director Bothwell?
I approve.
Director Shantok?
I approve.
Director Del Giudice?
I approve.
Director Phillips?
I approve.
Director Symington?
I approve.
Director Vale?
I approve.
Vice Chair Sneed.
I approve. Apologies for not speaking to the motion. Should the CRO be on this call or?
The CRO is in class right now, but she will be stepping out of class for the 2022 election updates. If that makes sense. Okay, and we can discuss further in my comments. Motion passes with unanimous consent. As for conflicts of interest, are there any conflicts of interest to declare today? It is wise that since we are going to be discussing the election, that if you are currently an active candidate, you should declare that as a conflict of interest. So we have conflict of interest from Director Symington, Director Del Giudice, Director Vale, who else? Director Shandok.
Sorry, should we be? Never mind.
Yeah, Director Phillips, are you running the election?
The board members were like the people who ran for the board have already been approved, correct? So I'm not, that election is done.
Well, the election is a claim, but you're still an active candidate, so it's best governance practice to recuse yourself from discussion about the elections. If it requires any potential reputational harm during bias. So yes, Director Phillips and Vice Chair C. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving forward, comments from the board and of the chair and of the chair of the board and CGO. So I don't really have too many comments to give here in this specific spot, since because of the election updates. The only update I really have to give is that unfortunately I was not able to have time to implement the live streaming as discussed in the previous meeting due to some election matters that preoccupied a great deal of time in the previous week. So that's planned to implement either the live streaming based on the documentation provided by Paris, or to buy a Zoom license as suggested and recommended by Director Vale will be postponed until the next board meeting. Other than that, does anyone have any immediate questions for me? Otherwise, we can have those questions answered either in the board governance practices committee report or in the elections update report or update discussion. As I do not see any questions, I guess we can move forward to comments from the president and CEO. So we can pass off to President Yamlov.
Good evening. In the same vein, I don't have too many updates. Working with the team to organize a mental health month, which will be scheduled for the month of March. Further working with my team to get into those mental health in classroom presentations, as you might recall from the last semester. Beyond that, on the UA front, local advocacy has been set, just connecting with individuals from both municipalities, Further working with USA this week, I have the USA paper policy concerns and recommendations due. Otherwise, everything else should be in the board report. Also wanted to note that I received my midterm review, and I believe Andrew has shared with you my acknowledgement.
Okay, thank you, President Yaumlov. Does anyone have questions for her tonight? As I see none, we can then move on to discuss, to the comments of the Executive Director and CEO. So thank you, President Yaumlov, for your time. And we can go over to Executive Director Champagne.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to update either. It's just trying to navigate the circumstances of this term, which those of you that are on the Senate and Board of Governors know, as we had a pretty extensive meeting today with the Vice President Academic, as well as the Vice President Student Affairs, to kind of figure out what the Laurier's plan will be. It is our hope that before the end of the week, they will have announced what the plan return to campus is post January 31st. Unfortunately, most of the things that we discussed at this point have been asked to remain confidential, so I can't really expand on that. But it has taken up a lot of time on our side of things. Other than that, just kind of business as usual, as has been provided in the updates. Andrew, you privately messaged me about the leadership training. Would you like me to discuss that now?
I think so. Since actually, oh, my apologies. There was actually a discussion agenda. I you can wait for that.
Okay.
My apologies. Okay.
How dare you?
I was too quick for my own good when I made this agenda package. But are those all the updates that you have from the board?
It is.
Okay, well, thank you for those updates. Do we have any questions for Executive Director Champagne tonight? As I see none, we can thank him for his updates and then move on to the RBC Comprehensive Loan Renewal discussion. So this was this is kind of a follow-up based on the discussion that occurred last meeting. So now that I think the members of the board had proper sufficient time to review the briefing note in its entirety, we can be in the full confidence to make a motion on this item. Yes, Director Vail.
Yes. Sorry, my mic wasn't down. I'll make a motion that we proceed with making a one-time payment of approximately $176,000 against the loan principal. Essentially just implement the recommendation.
Motion by Director Vail, seconded by Director Phillips. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Bryant,
I approve.
Director Shanto,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director Phillips,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vail,
I approve.
and Vice Chair Stevens.
I approve.
The motion passes with unanimous consent. So I guess we'll get updates on for the next board when that motion has been enacted, the one-time payment. Okay, so next we can move on to the leadership training discussion. So I'll pass it off to Executive Director Champagne.
Surprise, everybody, I'm back. I'm just gonna make a quick technical adjustment, if that's okay with everybody. There we go.
Love to meet with
Yeah,
you tonight.
so this kind of goes back to some of the challenges that we faced as a group in the summer. One of the things that was called for was some leadership training. So we have reached out to Catherine Razzo, who is the consultant that helped us set up the policy governance model that we have been following for the last 10-ish years, to have leadership training for our chair, potentially vice chair. We want to time that so that we can kind of double up and connect the chair-elect to that training. which will hopefully ultimately lead to group training for the board-elect moving forward. So there is a thorough and comprehensive understanding of the chair's role and how to lead the conversations and how to lead the board of directors moving forward. There will be a cost to that. We have an email out to her, the consultant now. Have not heard back yet, but the trainings, if she's amenable and can schedule those, have a tendency to be a little bit more on the expensive side. But there should be more than enough money in the professional development budget inside of the executive director's budget to cover that cost. But happy to go over those numbers once we hear back and can confirm that that consultant is available for that leadership training.
Okay. Thank you. We can now open up the floor for questions. Director Vale.
Yeah, just a thought, has there been any consideration, to sort of extending that training to, other members of the board, or, obviously I think the board elect as well, but I mean, if essentially if you're going to be doing it, if directors are available and able to attend?
That would be my intention if she's able to kind of book something for group training. I just didn't want to assume that would be the case with the board. So if the board is open to that, I'm happy to have you included in those sessions. Yes.
Okay. Again, Director Vale.
Yeah, no, I think that maybe that would be a good idea, is if rather than have like just a session with spending all that money, no offense, but just for the chair and vice chair, I think if to include, the other rest of the board.
There would be two separate trainings. There is leadership training specific for the chair and vice chair, and then there is board training for the whole. They're two separate things.
Okay, gotcha.
Just to give some background on this discussion too, as well, the original intention was to reach out to Ms. Razzo for the consultation training, but because of kind of delays in that schedule, it makes a lot more sense to just delay even further to align with this election and the chair-elect, because I believe, according to Executive Director Champagne, there isn't too much of an additional cost if we include more the chair or vice chair-elect in that training too, as well, for the leadership, right?
Sorry, was that a question to me?
Yeah, that's a question. There should not be any more additional cost, right?
Well, they would be two very separately intentional trainings. So one is specifically focused on leadership and leading the board and running board meetings, etc. And the other one is the board as a group.
Yeah, but including the chair-elect and the vice chair in the
no, there should not be additional cost to that. No, sorry.
Thank you. Director Bothwell.
So just to clarify, this is more something that would happen once all of the directors are claimed to the new board, as well as current directors on this board. It would just be like one big group training. Okay, because there's two separate. Yeah, I get that. One for chair and vice chair, and then one for the separate board. Okay, because I mean, looking at like the general numbers of people that have conflict of interest that are running, seems like I'm maybe the only director that won't be on the new board. So I'm like, okay, it would just be adding basically one person. But, okay, that's all I had.
Thank you, Director Bothwell. So I gather that it's the general sentiment of the board that that this is a plan that they are welcome to and that we can kind of continue forward with. I do not believe that a formal motion needs to be put into place, right? Just want to make sure that, because this is costing, as Executive Director Champagne stated, quite a significant sum of money, that consultation with the board first was a prudent step. But okay. So yeah, perfect. So we need agreement concept. So yeah, Director Vale.
And just a thought, I mean, as we are like a student board, in the chair piece as well, I guess for people who might want to be have future, chair opportunities, is this a good forum that we include them in the chair one as well, assuming there's no cost?
So that would be something that I could definitely broach, but I don't want to dilute the efforts for this year's chair as well as next year's chair.
Yeah.
I to answer the question that Director Phillips has in the chat, I don't believe we need a motion because there isn't a dollar figure attached to it as of yet. It will be below $10,000, healthily so. So I'm not super worried about that. So it should just a formality just to make sure. I didn't want to pay for something and then have 3/4 of the board say, yeah, we're good, we're not going to do that.
You answered that question there, Executive Director Champion, and back to you, Director Bothwell.
Also, I think we did agree to do some sort of training in the summer, like all of us as a board collectively. So
Yeah,
just
there's
remember
also
that.
somewhere along the line, Andrew, I believe you were filling out that EDI survey for the EDI training.
That has been
Yeah.
filled out quite a while ago, and no response has been given back to me.
So sorry, you've submitted that to the Center for Student Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, and you haven't heard back?
Yes. Yeah, I have
Well,
not
it
heard
just so
back.
happens I've got a meeting with them on Thursday morning, so I will follow up.
Amazing. Yeah, I like when you sent that email to me, I can't remember. It's November?
I don't remember it, to be perfectly honest.
Very wild, like a couple months ago. Yeah, I filled that out
Okay.
pretty like within the week with the vice chair. So
Okay, I'll follow up and let you guys know.
so, yeah. Good to hear that we're following up on these initiatives. Yes, Director Vale and
Actually, and along the
let's-
same lines as that, I just wondering if we, and I believe Chair Dang and yourself and I chatted about this quite a while ago, as I think we had the privilege to attend the a joint governance events for our Senate and different board roles back in, I want to say September or November or something like that, and there was an excellent presentation by Dr. Darren Thomas, and I know I talked to Chair Dang about that. I think that might be like something of interest to the board. It's sort of a professional development, opportunity, like a presentation came at some point. But I can honestly say, and I think Chair Dang would probably agree, that it was a very impactful presentation.
yes, no, I do remember that. Passing on to President Yama.
I think for those trainings, focusing on CSETI's offices would be probably a best move, just because I know Darren Thomas's offices are extremely busy and they are generally hard to schedule. So I think sticking to Phil's recommendation and we will follow up would probably be best move forward.
Well, CSETI we've already reached out to CSETI, but they have not followed back. So what might be, because I do agree with Director Vale that this was a very excellent presentation. We could possibly set something up for the April training for the new board, perhaps. And that might help resolve some of the issues that we faced in the very early part of our term in May of 2021. So did you want to say something else, President Yama? Okay, perfect. So I think that everyone is in agreement. Sorry, Director Bothwell. Yes, leadership training and EDI training are two separate initiatives, but we're trying to package them all together in the overall training mandate initiative that we as a board kind of committed ourselves to doing so way back when. Okay. As I see no further hands, I guess we can move on to the board governance practices ad hoc committee report. So I submitted a briefing note, unfortunately a bit late due to the technical difficulties of working on a very old laptop right now. But I thought that it would be prudent to send some written reports for people to refer to, so then it can be a good juxtaposition to the verbal updates that I will be giving. So the board governance practices ad hoc committee met earlier this week, and we came up with 5 specific aspects to recommend in terms of improving governance and efficiency as well as transparency. So the first one, which has very much been alluded to, is the transition to Microsoft Teams. So the Teams file has been set up, and the governance committee wanted to just basically ensure that like a consistent approach to this, so then directors and operations can easily find documents in the same places each time there's a new meeting. So that has been set up. And there's also the recommendation to move communications off of all, I guess, social media and like non-sanctioned chats onto Microsoft Teams, because of the board governance practices when an update is given on social media and then an ensuing discussion occurs, but that occurs without the full attendance of the board members, including our full-time staff and the president. So that creates the problem where decisions might be enacted before they are even in a very unofficial and untransparent manner. So that is one of the recommendations there. This also alludes to the new system of distribution. So with operations directly uploading information to MS Teams, directors can easily just access it as soon as an email notifying that documents have been sent out is there. And this basically removes the delay that incurs when the chair receives and historically then redistributes materials to either student publications or the board members. So, and that also separates the student publications from the main email there. So student publications will still be contacted about the official agenda, except they'll just be linked back to the board resources page because that's where the majority of public and published materials will be. So that's kind of alluding to the previous discussions in terms of just really increasing the efficiency of the distribution of materials. For the next item there, it's in terms of in-camera meetings, sorry, they're in keeping with the transition to MS Teams, it's recommended that in-camera sessions will now move off of Zoom and onto Teams, where it's a much more manageable platform since we have much more control over it. And that will really also resolve the issue where meeting recordings won't be deleted after 150 days, like on the Zoom platform. But with this recommendation, public, so currently running non-in-camera meetings will still remain on Zoom with no changes. The next item was discussing the secretary notes. So in the agenda, there was the new format secretary, so secretary minutes. So that is kind of encompasses the entirety of the recommendations that the governance committee has in terms of how the new minutes will be provided. And with also a further recommendation to the board adopt this new format for the in-camera minutes as well, to move away from the transcript style with the option to transition back to transcript style for specific meetings. Then we also have the moving forward a new agenda package format. So this will include a skeleton agenda with the appended exact motion that needs to be required for the applicable agenda items. So an example from our Director Mueller was provided, as well as appended before the new business announcements and action items agenda items. So this kind of gives a nice summary of what was discussed in this meeting in like a to-do list form of ways. So then we can ensure that all directors who were assigned tasks or need to provide updates or committee assignments have that reminder there. And we can ensure that tasks are no longer going to be delayed or forgotten after a lengthy discussion in a board meeting. And finally, moving on to most critical of all, the new board voting system. So currently the board voting system is done in a roll call situation, since this is to ensure that members are actually live on the other end in the Zoom call when there is no camera image provided. However, this does take a lot of time, especially through a lot of lengthy motions in a normal board meeting. So the recommendation is to revert back to the pre-COVID procedure where directors will simply just raise their hand, either using their physical hand or the Zoom function there. And this also ensures that directors have their cameras on for ongoing meetings to really increase that reputational and transparency piece too as well, because it's really important that we as a board have our cameras on. So thank you for listening to the updates. I want to make sure that everyone was on the same page. And you can refer back to briefing note for any other questions. But I see that we have a speakers list. So first we have Director Vail, then Bothell, and then Phillips. So Director Vail, you have the floor first.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Just one thought that came to my mind in reference to our sort of distribution of the minutes is in that I guess might be a challenge at times, just given the nature that our meetings are the Monday night before, is under Constitution, like that essentially members have to technically have access to our package, if you will, 24 hours in advance. So I guess what I'm wondering, is there a way for yourself as chair, maybe our secretary or both of you, to get access to the website such that you essentially, like if something like on the Friday or whatever, that if operations doesn't have time to upload the package, if it's not say ready in time for the end of the day on Friday, to ensure that we can like essentially folks can still see, like have access to the package, so that just for that transparency, just, and again, this challenge really just arises given sort of the nature of our meeting, the Monday night meetings, which is really, I mean, there really isn't any way around it.
I will pass that to either Ian or Phil to speak in that, since it's an operational aspect.
Yeah, full disclosure, I wasn't paying attention.
So it would be preferable if our website is not set up and is not conducive for adding extra users. It's purposely routed through a small channel. So the better scenario would be for the agendas to be submitted to marketing and communications with time for them to post on Friday.
Okay, well, I guess to address Director Vale's issue there, what I can do on my end is to have a meeting with Megan on marketing and just basically inform her that because of the new meeting times, make sure that this one task on before the end of Friday is done. And just have that reminder. So then if there's nothing else that needs, like if anything else, this is the biggest priority, just to keep abreast with our own policies. Do you have a quick follow-up, or can I move along though?
Yeah, and I guess so part of that, I guess, is we'll have to probably, like as a board, do we need to sort of set a cutoff of like when, if we, that like at some point, like what do we have for a cutoff for that, like to ensure that really that you're able to get the agenda put together in a timely manner that then ultimately allows operations to do that task. I mean, I don't think we can probably just send it at 4:30 on Friday necessarily, or I'm just wondering like how, like a challenge, how do we kind of navigate this?
Well, in my discussions with the operations team, the deadline that has been set out in our discussions is that all documents should be sent to the new database system on Teams by the end of Thursday. So hopefully that gives Thursday night time for myself to set that up, the agenda package, and then get that out to marketing on Friday morning. And that if there's any other delays that occur, then those should be for very specific agenda items where they will have to be either updated on Monday, or we as a board have to communicate that to the ownership.
Yeah, like maybe that would entail using the board Instagram or something like that as well, if there's something that needed. But I think as long as you can get the main package up there, the base line.
What could be a good advantageous solution is to set up a link tree on Instagram, and then maybe somehow find a way to upload the upcoming agenda package there, so we can have that ability on our own end in that in that aspect there. We want to make sure that we are really keeping abreast of that policy. So does that sound like a acceptable solution?
Yeah, no, I think that sounds good. And then the other piece I just wanted to point out, I believe if I recall from our discussion on number 5, was that I think there was discussion around that the virtual raising hand wasn't really, that if we couldn't see, if somebody had their camera off, that we would have to then just essentially orally ask them to, just so we can ensure that that person was who they were. That was just my recollection.
Yeah, no, the cameras are still on.
Okay, yeah, but if the camera's on, they can use the raise hand.
It's just either this, or they just simply do what you're doing now with that, because of because that's how we normally at least traditionally do. Like I think Director Bothwell, Director Phillips, who are waiting in the speakers list right now, will find it very difficult to keep their hand like that the entire time, right? So for waiting, so that's the kind of the essence of I just want
to make sure it was clear for everyone. That's all.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So yeah. Okay, perfect. Director Bothwell.
Yeah, so there's just a few things that we talked about in the committee meeting on Thursday that I think you might have just left out and need to be clarified. So you mentioned that we're going to email the core just the link to the website. In our committee meeting, we discussed that we'd send it to them once. We're not going to waste their time sending them the link every single week when they can access it like every other student. So
It's a one-time link.
okay,
That's
so
what it-
just
that's
as
what
long as we
everyone
can
knows.
clarify that. And
Yeah.
then my second point, so you mentioned cameras should be on for approval of motions, but we also talked about how when we're in camera meetings, if your camera is not on, you can't be in the meeting due to like risks of not knowing you're actually behind the screen. So just if we could amend the briefing note to include the fact that if you're in an in-camera meeting and your camera is not on, that is a serious risk.
In camera.
And then as long as everyone agrees with that, but that is what that's
No, that's
my
perfectly
understanding
fine.
of what
My
we
apologies
discussed.
if that wasn't captured in that briefing note there.
No worries.
I don't think
There
we
was
need
a
to
lot
amend
that
the
we
briefing
covered,
note.
so
I think we just need to amend the motion there.
yeah,
There you go.
perfect. And yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, is there anything else? Okay, perfect. Then I can go on to Director Phillips.
Yes, I just had a quick question about point 2 here. It's kind of a niche question. Is there a reason why we're doing? Oh, never mind. Actually, I read that wrong. Sorry. No, okay. So then just to clarify your point then, Director Bothwell, is that to say that directors who attend meetings without their cameras on will not be able to attend?
Yeah, so more like if you are in an in-camera meeting, the whole aspect of in-camera is that you're in a room by yourself and there's no one surrounding you. And if you don't have your camera on, you can't prove that you're in a room by yourself. Now, I think we could go around it with saying like you have to have your microphone unmuted or do something to that like sort if you really like have a broken camera. But like right now, the way we're operating in-camera meetings, like there could be a room of 20 people and we never know.
Well, that was my only question then. So then that's the mandatory cameras on is just for in camera sessions, like the public or the like confidential meetings, or would that be also going forward? Sorry, to like for all, because the reason I ask is because it mentions the roll call system for voting, which is public as well.
So I think it was more. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry, my apologies.
I was just gonna say it's more like in our actual meetings, like it's super encouraged that we have our cameras on, especially if we're doing the roll call policy. But in camera is more of a thing where you can't just use your voice, like you know how we said, like if you can't have your camera on, you can still say I approve. But if your camera is not on in an in-camera meeting, like what the Senate does is like you just can't be in the meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
I am aware that this will be a difficult shift. I truly believe as a board that this is very important to have that transparency piece to make sure that we all know that we are, first of all, during in-camera meetings, secure in a confidential and private location. I've been discussing with the and finally, Director Vale.
Yeah, just a thought before we go to a motion, unless anybody else has comments, is I guess it might be worthwhile to have maybe a meeting after our first or second meeting in February, like essentially after we've sort of transitioned to this new system, for a couple meetings, and then to have a discussion, is there anything we want to tweak? Is there any new things we think of, and just see how, how is operations finding? How are you finding it? To see, are there ways we can make these more efficient? Are there tweaks that could make things better? Or really ensure that it's doing the intended effect of, increasing transparency and making things more efficient. And assuming there's, Sam got a comment or?
Sorry, I actually do have a question. Maybe I'm misled here. I'm not super familiar with Microsoft Teams, but is there a way for us to kind of create functional side servers essentially for each of the committees so that we can do those like that work and submit that so that's possible? Is this something that we've already established?
Yes.
Just to actually for clarification there. So this committee, the board governance practice committee, we
Is
created.
Andrew frozen for anybody else?
No, just you, Ezra.
Nope.
Oh, sorry. It was my
No worries. This committee met on Teams by creating, I guess, its own chat or server. So that's the functionality. And then whatever materials, like, so like, for example, this briefing note that was created will then be put into the new database system there. And any record, and if this that the committee meeting needs to be recorded, it'll also be within that mini server, but then we can download it and then re-upload it onto the main database system. So that should hopefully answer your question there. I'm just also just for the clarification to all other board members who haven't used Microsoft Teams before or had challenges accessing it before. So like these are the functionalities there, and it is very convenient to use once you get the hang of it. So if this motion passes, then I will now only begin continue communications to the board via the Microsoft Teams chat, and we'll begin the process of closing the external social media chat. Hope that answers your question, Director Bryant. Director Vale?
Yes, I'll make a motion that the board adopt all of the presented recommendations provided by the board governance practices ad hoc committee with the necessary amendments.
Okay, motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Bryant. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, all those in favor, Director Bothwell? Okay, Director Bothwell has left the meeting at 8:39. Director Bryant?
I approve.
Director Shando?
I approve.
Director Del Giudice?
I approve.
Director McCarthy?
I approve.
Director Phillips?
I approve.
Director Symington?
I approve.
Director Vale?
I approve.
And Vice Chair Sini.
I approve and apologize for the internet instability there.
No problem. The motion passes unanimous consent without Director Bothwell. So now we can move on to the approval of the meeting minutes for the November 24th, 2021. So can I get a motion on the table to approve of them? Motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Del Giudice. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? I see none. All those in favor, Director Bothwell?
Yeah,
Question?
I cut out as you were saying what we're approving. I have no idea what.
Oh, we were just approving of the meeting minutes from November 24th.
Okay, then I approve.
So yeah, and just for the record, this includes the new format of the minutes here is what was discussed within the governance committee, which we just as a board approved of to recommend. So yes, approved. Director Bryant,
I approve.
Director Shando,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Phillips,
I approve.
Director Symington, although it does seem that he's indisposed of at the moment, so you can go back to him later. Director Vale,
I approve.
Vice Chair Sini,
I approve.
Director Symington,
Oh, I think I see him move. There's movement in his room, so I think he's. in
yeah,
there.
I think he is answering call, but just for the record, Director Symington left the meeting at 8:41 p.m. So, so the motion passes with unanimous consent without Director Symington.
Actually, he's right there.
He just okay. Let's go back. So Ian, do you want to say something?
Just that if people can let Andrew know if you're having any access issues with Teams, I can problem solve on our end. Shane, your email is still being reset. So if anyone else can't access for whatever reason, just let us know and we'll figure out why.
Yeah, I got a email today from, I think her name was Angela, but don't quote me on that. And she asked for me for my birthday because I think that's what she needs to reset it. So she's on the case.
Yeah, that's who's coordinating for sure.
On top of that, I have to run for like 10-ish minutes because like I'm on call. like as a duty on right now, but I do have like some, I do want to be part of the election updates discussion. So what are we gonna do?
What we can do is, so discussion, it will be very lengthy. Is there any, if you have any particular questions, if there's a way that you can type in a chat, we're more than happy to.
If I may interject here, maybe I personally might think it'd be wise to potentially motion for recess. Let Shane have the time
Okay.
he needs and allow him to be a part of this incredibly important discussion.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, that sounds good. So motion to recess for how long?
I think
I hope like 5-10 minutes. There's a student in Little House that's like locked out of their room. and
Okay,
I have to go.
let's give it 10 minutes.
8:55.
8:55. Okay, 8:55.
And if I'm not back by then, like I'll probably be back like within like, you know, a couple minutes of that coming back. I am really sorry. Like this is really unfortunate.
No worries.
Don't be sorry. It's important you're part of
Okay.
this discussion.
So motion by Vice Chair Sneedy, seconded by Director Bothwell. Would like to speak to your motion. Any discussion on the matter? I see none. All those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Bryant,
I approve.
Director Shando,
I approve.
Dr. DJ,
I approve.
Director McCarthy. Director McCarthy. We'll go back. Director Phillips,
I approve.
Director Symington. I think he's indisposed at the moment too. Director Vale,
I approve.
Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Going back to you, Director McCarthy, do you approve?
I approve.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes unanimous consent without, Director Symington? Without Director Symington. Oh, do you approve for the recess?
Yeah. No, I
Perfect, then the motion passes unanimous consent. Everyone have a good break. We'll see everyone again in 10 minutes.
Should we
Godspeed,
pause the
Director
recording?
Symington.
I remember seeing those.
No,
I didn't even know you, but I do remember seeing those. I'm not gonna lie.
hashtag stay in Canada. Oh God. Still have people who bring the memes up. Okay, we are at 8:55. Is everyone back yet? If everyone's
If
back,
somebody wasn't here, how would they answer?
your comments. Sorry, cameras, not comments. Harneet, are you here too as well?
Yep, hello.
Okay, perfect. Do you mind turning your camera on today, or is that option unfortunately not available for this meeting?
Unfortunately unavailable for this meeting, sorry. Do I need it
Okay.
on?
I think it would be best since just due to the nature of this conversation with the elections update. But as we have everyone, I'm going to now resume the board meetings. So board meetings are resumed. So if we can now proceed to our next agenda item, it is the elections update. So I'll pass it off to our CRO Shahal for the for updates of what has happened since the last board meeting.
For sure, thanks, Andrew. So everyone's been campaigning respectfully and it's been going relatively smooth. The only issue that we're facing right now is getting students to put their name forward for election for the, in particular, we need one Brantford student to fill a seat on the Senate and one Waterloo student to fill a seat on the Senate as well. And then for the board of directors, we need 2 seats filled, of which at least 1 needs to be from Brantford. I'm meeting with marketing tomorrow morning at 9:30, which is our weekly meeting to go over some marketing strategies. We have some posters made up that we're hoping to print off and put them around campus. And we're also looking into doing a joint giveaway where it's kind of like the SU gives that on their Instagram page, but it'll be like both of our accounts. So for example, we'll ask them to follow both accounts and tag 3 friends and they could have a chance to win blank gift. And yeah, I guess we just need your help with, I guess, getting the word out about the elections and seeing if there's any students that are fit for the position and get them to put their name forward.
Okay, thank you, Sarah Oshal. I also do have some updates too as well, just about the upcoming events this week. So we do have the presidential debate tomorrow, which should be running as smoothly according to plan. The open forums is slated to be on Wednesday at 3 p.m. However, I finally just actually about 2 hours before this board meeting finally received response from the board. And they stated their apologies for the delayed response as they were having trouble finding a moderator for the open forums due to people's schedules. There are, according to the email, they are happy to moderate if we can accommodate the schedule of one of their staff team members. However, that the only availability they have this week will be on Thursday from 3 to 5:30. So we have the opportunity on the elections team to move that date. However, it is noted that we've already reached out to, I believe it was our Dean of Students on the Waterloo campus. Is that correct, Connie? So that would be
Yeah, Kate.
Kate.
Yep.
And I believe she has confirmed, right, that she's happy to help us.
Yep.
And do we also have Ivan again for this upcoming open forums, or is that no go?
So Ivan did express his interest in it, but due to his busy schedule that day, we just chose to ask Kate, but Ivan is there as a backup if we need him.
Okay, so that's just for some transparency to board, because I knew that there was some communications regarding the last open forum. So I just thought that we let the board know about that. Otherwise, we can open the board for questions before you for the updates. So I see on the speakers list, we got Director Vale, Director Boffin, Director Symington. So Director Vale, you first.
Yeah, so I just had a question, and the CRO I think touched on it, but I guess so. Do we not need to technically, as a motion as a board, how we want to proceed? Because if under the policy to technically reopen the SU director ones, if I'm not mistaken, since they were already reopened for the 7-day period, or does the board not have to do anything with that? That's the first question.
I believe Ian, you could speak best to this.
Yeah, the board should motion how they wish to proceed moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And this is specifically in regards to directors, and I guess we can also do the same thing, or is it a different requires a different type of motion? For
it would be for all remaining open spots.
Okay, perfect. So we can.
And then my second question that kind of falls in line with that, and I sort of asked the CRO just so they can get it, kind of find it ahead of time for this, is do we as a board technically have the ability to, under the policy, to reopen this? Like, I guess, and this really comes down to an interpretation, or can Carney or the CRO just essentially reopen herself? Because since there was no specific provision in the policy like there is for the board, like, or does Senate have to go through the Board of Governors or somebody approval on the university side to reopen? Or I guess what I'm saying is, can we as a board reopen that ourselves?
Sorry, what is your specific question?
So under the policy, like in terms of like the reopening nominations component of the elections policy, for the board of directors, there's the provision that essentially CRO can reopen for 7 days, and then thereafter the matters are referred to the board. For Senate, there isn't such a, there's no condition on that. So I don't know whether the CRO can just reopen that herself again, or if the board even has the authority to essentially reopen that ourselves.
My recommendation would just be that the board follow the provisions for the Senate, empty Senate spot, as they are doing for the empty board spot. The specific term for the board of directors emanates from their most often being acclamations for the board of directors and not for Senate and board of governors, but the same standard applies, and the students union is tasked with electing those members for the university position. And given that the elections policy is a board policy, I mean, it's certainly your decision, and given that it's been specified one way for the board of directors, it probably makes sense just to stick with that for the Senate spot as well.
Yeah, no, that's why I just want to double check to make sure, because again, I don't know the operating agreement or all the nitty gritty behind the scenes of that, if you will. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, we can, I guess at the end of the updates, we can then, have a motion But next, Director Bothwell.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify that because we have Kate as an option for the open forums, we won't be like moving it so that the court can moderate, right?
I
Sorry,
mean,
the debate or the open forum?
the open forum, not the debate. The debates, as specified in the updates, remain as the current schedule. With, from my understanding with the court, no issue.
Yeah, but for the open forum,
Mhm.
the court said that they couldn't do the original date, so Kate will be moderating.
So yeah, we have that option there. So now, like it is within the discretion of the elections committee to move that date. I believe that based on the previous discussion that that the board had in the last meeting, that changes of the dates are not what candidates want to see. But I just want to state that after going through the motions to formulate and submit the memorandum of understanding, it would probably be best to, after all this effort, to try and include the court in some capacity. Unfortunately,
But they would
still
be doing the debate though, so they do have the capacity of involvement.
Yeah.
And I should note they didn't show up to the meeting tonight. So
Unfortunately, it did show up to the open forums though, just not as a moderator for the original one there. So that's just the point of interest there.
okay, well, I personally am of the opinion that we should just have Kate moderate it instead of trying to move it to accommodate for the court. And that is, as someone that is not a candidate, I have no conflicts of interest. I just think, as respect to the candidates, we shouldn't be moving it.
Yeah,
But that is
that's
for other
up to the
people to
record.
determine.
Yeah, it's just also for the record that in the elections team, right, in discussions with myself and Sarah, it's just we want to make it for the record that we're trying to include the court as best as possible, since we've already they expressed interest in it, right? And I think that it would be good that involvement as we have historically done. But if that isn't available just logistically because we already planned everything out, the election, and why go through, I guess, additional work, then unfortunately, then yes. Yes, Director Symington.
Yeah, so in a discussion that myself and Vice Chair Sanidi had earlier today, actually, he expressed to the fact that he has class tomorrow and he wouldn't be able to make the open forum. I am not really available Thursday. I'm okay.
Class tomorrow, so it would be the
Oh, sorry.
tomorrow.
I don't have class tomorrow.
Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm easy either way. I don't think it would be necessarily fair for me to show up alone. And I don't think, I think it would obviously would work both ways. I don't think it would, be the best practice for him to show up alone on the Thursday. I'm not sure what the solution is here, but I think this is like the reality of the situation currently. I'm not sure what solution we can get to there.
Yeah, so to Vice Chair, your class is during the Thursday 3 to 5:30, correct?
I have class on Wednesday. I will be in class Wednesday at 3 o'clock.
So 3 o'clock, and then Director Symington, you have.
I'm busy all day Thursday.
Huh?
I'm busy all day Thursday.
Okay, so unfortunately, we have a catch-22 just for the record there. Keep in mind that you guys are both running candidates, and you're not trying to change the schedule in the favor of either or. So I suppose then that would keep the election committee will keep, or the team will keep that in mind when trying to confirm the open forum coming days. President Yama.
I think that sticking to the schedule that was allotted and discussed earlier on would be my best advisement. And I think that Kate, having the Dean of Students involved, would actually be a very beneficial role. That's just like my 2 cents. And I think having the court involved is just, it should not be a priority in this matter at all.
Thank you, President Yellow and Director Vale.
Yeah, no, I thought just my comment, I guess, and has somebody who participated, I guess, in the debate last week, I thought it was Ivan, it was I thought it was, I think it was better well attended than, in all honesty, than last year, ones I attended in terms of attendance from actually some non-SU people, and it was a good vibe. Now, so I guess my question, so then is this presidential debate thing tomorrow, is that still on, or I'm just wanting to understand sort of what it's all, I guess where I'm going, I guess where I'm going is, we want to, obviously, I think a big thing, my view as a director is I want to see is engagement from the student body in this election. Like I want, I'd love to see tons of people come out in that. So I guess just trying to make sure we're staying on top, like we're trying to be proactive, not reactive, and like on the last minute on things. That's all.
Well, I will say that in the last one, while the attendance was good on the non-SU people side, and there were some great questions asked, no candidate from the Senate came, and only one candidate from the governorship came. So in terms of attendance from candidates, it was not the desired outcome that was hoped for. That was with keeping the dates consistent with the original plan. So that's just there. But the comments from and discussion from the board have been noted, and I believe that the elections team can come to a satisfactory conclusion for everyone. At least try to. Is there any other questions relating to the open forum and for election plans? Okay. Yeah, just for point record, very good point. If you give people from the director possible, if you give people less notice, attendance will likely be less. So yeah, hopefully that this upcoming open forums with the board directors will have some good attendance, since it is very important, since these are going to be your successors in this role. But with that being said, if there's no other questions, we can move on to just some formalizing, just kind
Shane
of.
has his hand up, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Director Symington. Sorry, didn't see that.
Yeah, so this is kind of steering in a little bit of a different direction here, but I think there are some things that need to be said with respect to how the election is currently being handled. And I don't like to do this. I don't consider myself to be like a very negative person, but I do think that some of the things need to be said, especially considering these aren't my lone concerns. So a couple things I've taken, I'm gonna say taken issue with, for lack of a better term, with respect to how the election is being handled so far. The Laurier Votes Instagram page is posted 3 times in the electoral period. One of our main issues is trying to hit quorum. It doesn't seem like that, they don't line up there. On top of that, our webpage, which is touted as the Everything Laurier Votes 2022, has no info on any candidates, an outdated calendar, and 0 platforms posted there. On top of that, developments surrounding dates and moderators were not brought to the board's attention. I know that did kind of just get addressed right there, so I'll kind of breeze past that one. I did scroll through the chat today. We had been told to refrain from interacting with referendum social media. Today, I got an email from Rita asking for support for her referendum, adding that she had consulted Kearney and was told that this was permitted under the rules, so that felt a little bit inconsistent. I'm not entirely sure what the framework of the debate is. I tried bringing it to your attention twice today, and once those questions were asked, I didn't get a response, like twice. We were told that the court hadn't been responsive since last Tuesday. Makes me wonder, are they actually prepared for the debate tomorrow? I don't know if there's a backup plan. I don't I'm at least I'm not privy to who's moderating it. I don't know again what the framework of that is. I don't know if their questions will be reviewed prior to the debate. I don't know if they would be reviewed. I don't know who they would be reviewed by. So these are all questions where I feel like I'm not alone in my frustrations, where it feels like I'm not fully understanding how I'm supposed to be tackling my campaign kind of thing. And I'm speaking also on behalf of Ezra, where we've shared our frustrations in these matters. And it is unfortunate because, you know, I think Ezra and I are doing a pretty solid job of engaging people through the very limited means that we have access to. Like, it is unfortunate, but the reality of the situation is he's running his entire campaign sitting behind a laptop. I'm running my entire campaign sitting behind a laptop. I understand it's the reality of the situation, but like, we're putting in that hard work, and it feels like, I don't know, these are concerns, and it's frustrating because, like I said in the beginning, like, a huge point of contention is the fact that hitting quorum historically, especially in the virtual environment, we don't have a great track record there. And it seems like for an issue that is as pressing as that, and one that we have been aware of for at least a couple of years now, it seems like it's not being, I don't want to say like not being handled, but I don't know, like, and that was just kind of me airing a couple of grievances. And like I said, I'm not bringing these up because like, I don't want to see heads roll. I'm not here to like get an apology. I just want to like be better so that like, this isn't an issue. I don't want quorum to be an issue. I want like things to be running smoothly. I want to be informed and prepared for all the debates and that kind of thing. So yeah, I apologize if I'm not proud of having to come on and kind of just like be all negative like this, because I don't like doing this. This isn't what I want to be. But you know, I feel like a lot of that stuff unfortunately did kind of need to be said, and I think it was important to be said because I'm not the only one in thinking that stuff. So I'll leave it at that.
No, I will say before I move on to speakers list, I appreciate your candidness and your frankness about this. I can tell that you do have like a list of these concerns provided. I will ask you later on if you could provide me that list again, just because so I will address many of the issues, but I want to make sure that these are addressed after meeting. So if you have that, possibly be more than welcome to receive that.
Do you want me to throw it in the group chat?
I think very prudent for a discussion. And then next we have Vice Chair Stevie.
So I like to echo what Shane just said. I don't think there's a need for an apology at all, and I think he articulated himself very well. Even just the little things too. If you go on the Students' Union website, I was trying to talk to one of my colleagues at McDonald's about the election, and they said they go on, it says 2021 Students' Union election. They think it's done. They think the election was in September. Those little things certainly don't help. Furthermore, I think that the open forum, Ivan Joseph is a busy man, as was mentioned in this meeting. To basically leave him with not really a clue what to do, I don't think was right. I understand the presidential candidates weren't necessarily a part of that, but it's not right to suggest that we have somebody like him come in and basically be met with an awkward silence until things are eventually getting sorted out during the meeting. Furthermore, I know the presidential debates was an issue one, but you know, how can the presidential candidates prepare for a formal and legitimate debate if we don't know what's going on? That trickle down effect will impact quorum. I think as we saw in some previous elections. So, you know, Shane really, I don't want to repeat everything that Shane said, but again, you know, the feeling is mutual here. And it's already hard enough because we were told on several occasions that this election would be in person, reflecting that of 2020 rather than 2021. So we're already at a point where we've had to execute a campaign with weeks of preparation rather than months, like what other candidates have had the privilege of doing. So, you know, again, we don't want to come to this meeting with these frustrations, but they need to be addressed yesterday. And the fact that they haven't is disgraceful in my opinion, and I think is worthy of, you know, a leadership consideration in this board after, but that is something we can leave until later. So again, thank you for listening. And I do want to thank Shane for again, echoing those points and, you know, really being blunt about the situation.
Hey, thank you, Vice Chair Stevie, for those comments. Again, I really do appreciate the candidness of your thoughts. Next, we can go on to our CEO, Shahal. I think we'll be able to answer some of the points that you guys brought up.
Yeah, first I just want to thank Shane and Ezra for expressing their concerns. In regards to the referendum involvement, when Ritu did email me about that, I wasn't sure about it, so I asked Ian, and he said that candidates can support referendums, but candidates cannot support other candidates. So you can support the referendum. And in regards to the posting, Director Vale had told me that he had heard from students that they were getting annoyed with how much we were posting on My Learning Space and newsletters being sent out from Students Union and such. And so from my perspective, I didn't feel like I should have been pushing out as many Instagram posts because I had heard this from Director Vale saying that students were getting annoyed with how much we're posting about the elections. We've made 2 My Learning Space posts. We were going to post another one, but then we kind of held off on it until we're going to do one soon about like obviously like the voting days and stuff, but we're trying to be very careful with what we're posting because again, we don't want to annoy students. And in terms of the summary platforms being posted on the website, I do agree that should be posted on the website. In my eyes, I'm a bit worried that if we post some summary platforms and not like say, for example, the new candidates and stuff, that may put them at a disadvantage. But since tomorrow I do have that marketing meeting with operations, the operations marketing team, we can get that posted up ASAP. I think I'm missing a few other points. I'm sorry, it's kind of hard to grasp everything that was mentioned. But if you could give me a pointer as into what wasn't addressed, I can address that.
While you do that, I think Director Vale wants to respond to one of your comments.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. I can't remember if it was the December board meeting or when it was when I just sort of, raised some of the comments I was hearing. It was really specifically related just to the number of emails in that time period. The Secretariat's office put in, like, there's just a bunch of emails and then all at once. I didn't relate to the Instagram. I want to make sure it's clear if there was a misunderstanding or something. But again, I mean, I think now in this time of year, I think too, the challenge, as I've seen them in My Learning Spaces, I think everybody's monopolizing it now as well. It's just one of those times of year, but I think, I don't think Instagram is an issue or any of these others. I think, the weekly emails or whatever the student union, like, I think that those are fine.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we're not like students aren't getting bombarded, I think it's probably the big thing.
Thank you, Director Vale. Just give me a quick moment. I'm going to try and get the notes that Director Symington has sent in the email. But while we do that, we can pass it to Director Bothwell.
Yeah, and kind of to speak to the Instagram post, I wouldn't find students get annoyed by it. I'd actually see it's a tool for success, especially if, like, members of the board, we can't share candidates' platforms, we can't share like people running. So in order for us to be able to use our platform for good, I think there should be constant Laureate votes posts so that we as a board can at least share it to our following as well.
No, that's a good point. Thank you, Director Bothwell. Going back to Sarah Shaw.
Yeah, I just remembered the point about the late notice about the open forum. So marketing had something prepared also for the newsletter about the open forum, like to include it in the newsletter, but they were holding off because we weren't like very sure where we stood, because we were kind of in that issue of, do we reschedule? No, it wouldn't be fair to the candidates, since we were kind of stuck. And then obviously when things were finally confirmed, I posted right away. And in terms of the presidential debate as well, I had emailed the Court and Student Publications twice, and I only heard back today. And I had to create the Zoom link on my own. I had the poster ready and everything over the weekend, and I was just waiting for their link for the Zoom to post it, because I didn't want to just make a post and not give a link to the presidential debate. So once I had that, I did make that post. But again, yeah, I do understand the importance of getting this stuff out there. But it's just that some parties sometimes hold us back from having to be able to like make these posts, if that makes sense. We have to wait on some answers before we even get to post about it.
Thank you, Director Shaw. Is there anyone else who wants to be added to the speakers list? If not, then I can kind of address some of the points that I think that our two candidates here or anyone else who's running the elections or just the board feels as a in general sentiment. So in terms of the presidential debates, as President Yamov kind of pointedly stated in the chat, that is pretty much in the complete jurisdiction of student publications and not really laureate votes. We just kind of tag along that. So unfortunately, when when looking back at the responses and in you asking the questions, the only thing I could send to you, only thing I confirmed was that an email should be sent out from Carney, because as she just said, student publications did not reach out to us at all. The only email they sent to us was the one way back last week. Sorry, not last week, 2 weeks ago almost. And the thing is that since that's not really a laureate votes event, we didn't really have too much jurisdiction to dictate how that event would go on and to find a backup moderator. Unfortunately, if the core didn't respond, then we would have to cancel the event just because it's not our event. We don't historically have a jurisdiction on that. Our form of a presidential debate is really within the confines of the open forums. So that's the unfortunate part. Speaking on to Vice Chair Snee's part about Ivan Joseph and having the awkward silence in there. Myself and the CRO actually did meet with Ivan Joseph ahead of time and prepared him a bank of questions and walked him through everything and gave him as much support as possible. The primary result of that awkward silence is because no candidate showed up, with the exception of the referendum chair for one question and one governor candidate. So that was the result of the open forum. This is something that the CRO and I discussed because we did not hear anything back from candidates. We wanted to push the open forums, but just due to kind of the specific responses, we decided to just power through and just hold it as the date specified. I'll hold off further responses because you see the speakers list. Director Vail.
Yeah, no, my question, and I think, and it was, I just want to confirm. So was the open forum, I believe, is it Wednesday, Thursday? Let me check my.
Wednesday.
So I got a Wednesday. Sorry, I got a billion meetings this week.
Both
Is that
open
so?
forums
Is that
are Wednesday?
Yeah, right. So is this? So it seems like we got like a moderator now then, or?
We have moderators for yes, for the upcoming one.
Okay. Just a thought, but it might be worthwhile like putting out an email to the folks, like probably maybe tonight. Then people like, the more notice you give people, the more likely we're going to actually get people to show up. That's the issue. I mean, even though it's been people's schedules, right? It's just, I think you'll get better uptake. And obviously, I'd love to see 100 people show up, candidates, but I think the more notice we the more we push it earlier, probably the better uptake we'll get on it.
Yeah. I do also want to speak to the sentiments that everything feels inconsistent. That's just unfortunate. As Vice Chair C stated, most of the plans that we had in place were to have some sort of in-person election. Just being online is difficult. Many of the plans to reach out to students are failing. I know that a lot of candidates have shared the sentiment saying that reaching out to maybe go to classroom visits has not panned out because professors don't want that, even just not being able to just directly reach out to students. That's a big issue. But the unfortunate thing is that we're just dealing with the circumstances here. And when I was the vice chair last year, this was very much a similar sentiment where we're at the sway and will of public health, and with everything online, it's extremely difficult. I'm not trying to put off the blame off myself because I do understand how tough it is as a candidate. You have all these plans come up and you can't do them. And we want to be able to reach quorum. That's a big thing. I mean, heck, this board has been struggling to even find additional candidates too as well, just to fulfill some of our positions. So that sentiment is not lost to me at all. It's difficult to play around the rules, but the one thing that I can definitely speak upon for sure is that the lack of posting on the Laurier Votes Instagram page has been well heard. And the board resources page, that not being updated is disgraceful on my part. So with the meeting with marketing tomorrow, we will make sure that those are all up and ready. I do see more people on the speakers list, so I'll hold off my responses again and open up to first Director Miller and then Vice Chair Seeley.
Why wasn't Director Cindy to go first? I was just going to make a motion in reference to the open position, just to keep things moving, but I'll let him go first.
Perfect. Vice Chair Seeley.
Well, I just wanted to say quickly that I don't think it's necessarily fair to suggest that we went through the exact same issues, last year. I'm not trying to question your experience as vice chair, but I think that last year we did have more consistency, and I can at least say that, students knew that there was an election that had the consistent elements of it, whether it was, frequent posts, updates, platforms posted, whatever it was. So I just, given that there are some members on this board who were on last year's board, I don't think it's necessarily fair to suggest that, it was similar, at least in my opinion. Maybe Shane can second that, given that he was, the only one on last year's board. I don't mean to put him on the spot, but I really don't think it's fair to suggest that last year we went through these same issues.
So yeah, Director Symington, sorry, that I assume that was just for you.
Yeah. No, I can definitely, like, it's tough because both of you guys are chairs and I've never been a chair. So I think you guys kind of have an increased perspective on that kind of thing. But from what I do remember, I do remember Kayla Hahn specifically kind of, ripping the TikToks. That's way out of my depth. I don't know how that stuff works, but like doing stuff like that kind of would engage and appeal kind of more general students, just kind of entice that attention. So I don't know, the idea of it being like an apples to apples comparison even is like a difficult thing, because this year we kind of, from what I remember, last year was assumed we were going to be online. This year was assumed we were going to be in person, and then we had to flip flop. So it's a difficult conversation to have. And I think there's a lot more nuance to that. With respect to like your explanations for everything, and like obviously like those are helpful, and I do appreciate you kind of clarifying a lot of like what you did have to say. A lack of my understanding was how we do have limited, like us as Students Union do have limited input on the presidential debates. And while I do think that is pretty unfortunate and definitely doesn't remedy the issue of, I feel like I could be a little bit more prepared, but that's not our problem now, because like obviously now I know that it's literally not under our jurisdiction. But that said, like if I were to double down on anything, it's just the idea of like consistent communication. I think because like you had points that like increased like my understanding as like why these things are happening, but they weren't being communicated as effectively as they might as they could have been. And so I appreciate you kind of clarifying like those points where I felt like I wasn't understanding. It's just, yeah, no. So I don't know. I'm not sure to what end or what point I was making there. I think it was kind of rambling.
Well, no, that brings up a lot of fair point. And Kayla Hahn was really kind of like the big thing that helped last year. That was actually one to bring up. And I'm happy that you did, because I think looking at that, if we as a board, who are not running, who have some social media experience, if we're able to come together, because I will fully admit that I am not a social media savvy person who can make TikToks. We've reached out to, as I said, we reached out to Kayla Hahn to help make TikToks. She has made some, but the problem is that because she has signed up to be a scrutineer for the candidate, we don't know if we're allowed to utilize that, because that may constitute some sort of conflict of interest, which is a bit difficult. So we're just waiting on that, because she wants to be scrutineer for a particular candidate, and she's asking us why can't we be both, and we're trying to figure out if that's possible. Sorry, I had something else to say, but I do see speakers of Director Bothwell.
How about I make things easier? I can make TikToks. I've literally had social media marketing positions all last year.
Yeah,
just tell me what you want. But I do want to bring up too that like personally as a candidate last year, like as someone that likes using social media, I did like that you asked candidates running to make a TikTok to introduce themselves and like put their key platforms in, because that was like a short, like 10-second video. Like I literally just went on TikTok and found mine. Like it was easy. It was put on Instagram stories, and I scrolled through all of them and got to know like who I was running against. And like, I don't know, my video at least had 500 views. So if we can utilize that on TikTok and like take hashtag Laurier, it's like a very easy way for people to just to get to know candidates, as well as like it can also be posted on the Laurier Votes page.
No, I think that help was really appreciated. There was the idea of reaching out to the social media ad committee, but the problem was that many members of that, well, almost half, more than
All of them will quit. Yes.
No, well, no, not quit. They're running
Resign.
active candidates, so it's a bit of a difficult thing. I believe like the true chose on that too, so I can't remember who else, but yes, many did unfortunately resign. Yeah. Did you have any other comments to make, Director Bothwell?
No, I just thought I would point out, because I am not running, that
Okay, no,
I am happy to do that. And I just thought I would make the suggestion because I thought it was a really good use of social media last year to encourage candidates to make TikToks to be posted on Laurier Votes. And they could post it on their own social media, whatever. But I did think that was a good way to reach more people.
No, I really like that. I think that this is a great way how we can utilize this discussion, because I don't want to put the blame on anyone else. I think that we, working together to figure out the solution to this, I think will benefit not just the board itself, but also all our active candidates too as well. Moving on to Director Vale.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds like Director's Bothwell. I think it sounds like a great idea. And I think, again, I mean, she's on the elections committee, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So and that kind of fits within their mandate anyhow, in terms of like promotion of the election. I think to keep things moving, I'm going to make them, and actually maybe if the CRO or, the director of policy research or the chair or somebody can comment. So if we reopen, like what's a reasonable amount of time to reopen the director and the two Senate positions in terms of like, in terms of like the election itself? Because if I'm not mistaken, they technically would have to have like sort of an ad hoc candidates meeting. Is that not correct still? Like in other words, to kind of declare them as candidate? And because I mean, seeing as we're not, the voting, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, opens 8:30. Is it next Tuesday? So I'm just wondering, like, I don't know that we don't really have 7 days, I don't think.
So if the board were to extend it back to Friday, the idea would be to have the all candidates meeting on the weekend there. That was the initial plan anyways, with the previous reopening, where I allocated Sunday night as the all candidate meeting again, but because we weren't able to find any other candidates, that did not happen.
So I'll make a motion then maybe that we reopen the board of directors, the 2 seats, I believe, one of which must be Brantford, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yes, two.
And then the one
Brantford.
Waterloo Senate and the one Brantford Senate,
Yes.
to Friday at noon.
Okay. Friday.
And then this is just an initial comment, not in the motion itself, but perhaps in the advertising or marketing for this reopening, that maybe and I don't know if it would be appropriate or not, but it could be suggested that assistance can be provided in obtaining signatures if that was going to be a barrier for folks.
It hasn't been communicated very much to the candidates who have expressed interest, but just simply haven't reached that signature requirement, but they have not responded back to myself, the CRO, this entire week. So
okay,
that's unfortunate. But yes, we have the mover. Do we have a seconder? Director Bothwell, would you like to second the motion, or do you have a comment to make still? Okay, second by Director Bothwell. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, all those in favor, Director Bothwell?
I approve.
Director Bryant? Sorry, Director Bryant is noted to just stepping out for momentarily in the meeting. We'll go back to him later. Director Shanto?
I approve.
Director WDJ?
I approve.
Director McCarthy? Director McCarthy? Back to him. Director Phillips?
I approve.
Director Symington?
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Going back to you, Director McCarthy. Director Brown, are you back yet?
Yeah, sorry, I did send you a message that I had to step out
Yes.
for a moment. What are we voting on exactly? 'Cause I
We're
got
just
back here.
voting on the reopening nominations for the reserve or required positions to Friday, this Friday at noon.
Yeah, I approve.
Thank you. So motion passed unanimous consent without Director McCarthy. Okay, so yes, so a lot of items of discussion were here. But before I move on from this, there's just one thing that I would like to put in terms of the sentiments of discussing, as Vice Chair Sneedy noted and Director Symington noted, in terms of the different apples and apples to oranges with this election. The last election was the added discussion of the memorandum of understanding that we sent to the court student locations. I just want to note that the inconsistency with trying to get that side of the election set up, and really, like, honestly, the sheer amount of time it took to just go through the motions of getting that same response, not to, the one big difficulty was that when we did have an initial discussion on this, well, it's getting too much of any confidential matters, no one responded, with the exception of the CRO and 2 directors about that. So great amounts of delay occurred from December to January for that. And that really caused a big ratchet into plans, because we had all these dates set up ahead of time, but the CRO and myself were instructed to not communicate, or, as stated in the email to the court, we were instructed to just not have any communications to that. So that's just one other thing that I just want to add that really kind of led to this difficulty, where a lot of time and energy had to be put into this. We want to communicate that. Your hand was up.
No, it's all right.
Mm-hmm. There's just yeah, I just wanted to just to share the sentiments there that might have led to I guess what has been seen by active candidates here, or to anyone in the gallery, as a just inconsistency and a real lack of certainty with things, just because of all the sheer delays, right? And some of these, I will say, were a bit outside the confines of the CRO, what they were able to do, and their ability given the situation. Yes, Dr. Buffalo?
I just, when you say instructed by operations, I just want you to remember that we don't get instructed by operations. They can advise us and guide us to do things, but at the end of the day, it was within our decision, within your discretion as the chair. So I know it took a delay, but the instructions by operations isn't something that's binding. That was they told us we have to do that because, and technically speaking, they didn't instruct us. I just wanted to say that.
Point of order here. I don't want to be confrontational here, but I think we're verging into a little bit of discussing in-camera matters in an open session. So I just think we need to be a little bit cautious here.
Yeah, but no, my apologies for that slip up there. It was more so based on the discussion, the result of which was that without further instructions from the board and discussion with operations, Cyrano and I were not able to act. That's all. But other than that, we can go on. Is there any, just before we go on this, I know that this is a very important matter. Is there any other things that active candidates would like to discuss right now, or any board members would like to discuss in terms of the election and these important things, because we want to be stewards of this election? Yes, Director Vale.
Just as a housekeeping item, I believe you wanted to call a meeting after the election, like essentially an additional regular meeting, I guess, given the notice appearance. Is that still correct, or Do we have a date and time affixed that could be just sent out for folks' calendars as a placeholder?
That is the plan, and just my apologies, give me a second to check. So yeah, that actually is going to be in the discussion with the ownership linkage discussion, actually.
Okay.
So if there's no other comments that people want to make, then I will take the list that Director Symington has given, and me and the CRO will work to remedy what we can with the marketing meeting tomorrow and throughout the rest of this week. Again, please, if you have any contact within the Brantford community or with any students who are interested in governance, please reach out to them to help us find spots for the director and the senator position, because that is also the other point where it's taking up most of the time for the CRO and I. We're really trying to just struggle to, before we can even focus on the advertising, we're just trying to make sure we can get people to run the elections. Right.
Yeah, do we have a current list of all the, I think it's what, 9 candidates that we have for the upcoming board of directors, I guess, like
Yes,
whatever the list, yeah?
we do have.
Do we have that accessible to the members of the board right now? Or
Believe that should be available on the
It would be in the slide
all
deck, I
candidates
believe, as
meeting.
well.
Yes, and that slide deck was, my understanding, posted online.
okay, that's fine.
Okay, Director Vale.
Just as a housekeeping item, I guess, as well. Like, so if we don't like, I've been obviously I spent all of last week, trying to sort of find or connect with folks to see, who might be interested in director or senator or whatever. Challenge I have is I'm in sort of my fifth year, but in like fourth year, and I know you're in the same boat, Chair Dang, and so everyone I know is graduated, or they're all going to be graduating soon. But what happens if we don't essentially have any candidates on the Friday? Like, how do we proceed as a board at that point? Like, do we essentially just leave those fill? I mean, technically, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, like we can just proceed accordingly, at least with the director component. I guess, how do we proceed with the current election that's in effect? Just given that there really isn't a lot of time, to hit them on the ballot. If we don't.
Is a question that
I mean, hopefully we don't have that, but I just rather think
no,
what
it's a
if.
good precautionary discussion that we should have, and I can't speak from my experience in that, so I might have to pass it on to either our director of prosecution advocacy or executive director of Champaign. Do you know? I guess Ian would be probably the best one to speak on this. What would occur if if the worst possible case and we were unable to get any candidates?
I mean, if you're playing out that scenario, the most likely situation would be you would complete the current election and then you would decide on a time to call a by-election. I don't think you would want to wait and go an entire year with an unfilled board. So I mean, that's where the onus is on the current board to be working their networks in order to get candidates, because you would inevitably just end up needing to call a by-election.
Thank you, Ian. Does that answer your question, Bill?
Yeah, it does. And I mean, I certainly, and I don't speak for others here, but I'm hopeful. I mean, I'll keep trying and do my part, but and hopefully others will, and see if we can try to find someone. But I certainly do not want to go through a third election in my term as director. I think between the last election, I think after this, I think everybody's going to be tired of elections, because I think that it's going to feel like, so hopefully, we can all kind of keep working our networks and make some magic happen here.
I concur. Thank you. Director Bryant.
Sorry, one last point here. So if we do fill the amount that we need to fill the board just generally, or if we're short of that, like I wasn't really considering running again, but if we're short on candidates, I will, like, I don't have a very busy schedule. Is this just going to be an acclamation, or is this going to be like a full election with candidates, even though most of them will probably just get in regardless, or if not all of them?
To answer that question, if the exact amount of candidates run for the ones that we require, then it'll just be an acclamation. However, if let's say there's 3 Waterloo and 1 Brantford, then the Waterloo students will have to go through an election. If there is 2 Waterloo, 2 Brantford, then it'll just be a normal election with just the voting system keeping to account that one of them has to be a Brantford student winner. So that makes sense. But and I can definitely say, on behalf of the board, hopefully that we appreciate you, stepping up and deciding to run again if need be.
Yeah, and I mean, just to put a point out there too, Brendan, I'm actually taking a 5th year, so I will be here next year. And secondary to that, like I wasn't really considering it because I had other opportunities that I had planned, but I mean, like I don't mind. I feel like it'll give me a lengthier opportunity to be present on the board of directors anyways. I know Blake's, returning to run again, and so is Frankie. So that's not something that's out of my wheelhouse, I guess.
Okay, thank you so much for those comments. Going next, Director Bothwell.
Yeah, just before we go, I'm not sure if we need to have an official motion put forward, but it is my recommendation that if we're going forward with social media and using TikTok, that we have an official Laurie Votes TikTok account and not just post content on Instagram. So not sure if that's within the descriptions of the elections team, if they can just make an account or if we need to approve it being created.
So because we do have a Laurie Votes Twitter, I believe that this does not really require the motion of a board because this is not a board official chat compared to the Instagram page when we convert it back. Like right now it's just an elections page, but during the normal rest of the year, it's the board page, right, which would then go under the policy where all board external communication has to be approved by the unanimously by the board. So I think having our own TikTok would be fine as long as it's specifically just within the confines of hashtag Laurie Votes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I just wanted to
don't
make
believe
sure.
anyone has any issues against that, right? No. Okay, well, again, thank you for all the comments. Director Boff, do you have any last comments you want to make?
No, I just propose we make that literally
Mhm.
right this second. So if we're trying to recruit candidates, we can make videos
Yeah, I think
tomorrow.
myself and the CRO can get into contact with you right after this meeting. And
Yeah.
I don't believe a formal motion is required for this. So we can get that process going. And last thing, before I know that somewhere in the comments that there was a mention in terms of concerns about my leadership, I just want to ask again if that was a concern and if I should be, looking up and presenting the board the following procedures if such a decision is required or in what the board desires. I don't know if that's too soon to ask right now, but I just want to be aware so I can provide the board with the necessary materials and prepare myself too as well. Director Bothwell.
I would just propose that we don't discuss this tonight. I think it's a lengthy discussion. And instead of trying to put things up on the spot right now, I think we should just leave it for next meeting.
Okay, sounds good. I guess we have a mover on that. And we have a seconder, Director Bryant. Okay, so to table discussion of leadership. Okay, so I guess if that is.
I don't think that was on the agenda technically, though.
No, I
It was
guess.
Yeah, it was never
not,
added to
right?
the agenda. Yeah,
So
no.
I don't know if an official motion. I just want to make sure that we're doing this the best proper way, right? If the board wants to have it as an official agenda item, we can set that up for next meeting.
People can do a notice of motion is like a procedural thing, I guess, if people wanted that.
Yeah, we can always just go for if you want to notify me within the 48 hours or prior to that of setting up the agenda, then members of the board can do so with sufficient votes. So yeah, there you go. Finally, if there's no other discussion about the election, then we can go forward to the ownership linkage discussion. So as Director Vail alluded to, there is the plan to have a results night for the election, and then possibly either the night of or on the Friday after, formally reviewing the minutes of the election, then to have a board meeting there. So this is where if the board wanted to have, since I assume most of us are going to be there in supporting of all our active candidates for the results night, would it be prudent to have the meeting afterwards there too? So because we could possibly tie it into an ownership linkage event. I know that last year, what results night had was Twan's bingo. Unfortunately, he's no longer doing that with lawyer, which is very sad. But what we can do is that we could tie this up to an ownership linkage event by having some sort of activity, or hiring some sort of person to create some sort of event, because then that might draw in more attention for people who are interested in the election, first of all, but it also ties into one of our governance mandates, which is to do an ownership linkage event. And we have not done one for the summer or the fall terms yet. So that's something which the board has we as the board are lacking. So just want some thoughts on this. So I guess we can bring it to Director Vale first, and then after this, Xiaohao, and then Vice Chair Seeley, and then Ian.
Couple of comments, and just maybe a couple things are being conflated here. So the board meeting to essentially approve the results of the election, that would be done on the Friday, correct? Or
it would be done on the Friday, or
the Thursday night. I'm in class from the 7 to 10, so that would be the issues. I wouldn't be able to attend the board meeting likely then.
Okay, that is noted.
Just as not that, but I mean that's just more from our scheduling stuff before. That was all. But my other issue, and I don't want to be negative here. I think an ownership linkage event, I think that's a great idea. I think we didn't really get to one in the fall. I think I think students, I think it might be a good opportunity. But the what if we don't have quorum? Like, is it kind of, how do we sort of navigate like the awkwardness of sort of branding this as like the results night, and then this is right before, and then what if we don't have results? Like I don't want to be that person, but I'm just thinking, like, how do you sort of sell this as a, what I mean? Like, it's going to be kind of an awkward and a letdown for folks. I mean, we don't want to be in that position. Now, my other comment would be I also don't think it's prudent to be approving the results the night of. I think it's better to wait the Friday anyway, because then we can get like the written report similar to the by-election we did in the fall, and with like sort of the official results, if you will, rather than just then really, everybody's going to be tired at the end of that night anyway. So those are my comments.
Yeah, just to quickly address some of the concerns. Yeah, the scheduling concern, we can possibly discuss that later on. Don't want to favor one director over everyone else, but for the written report, once the scrutineers approve of everything, the written report can be very quickly and easily drafted up. So that's not an issue. It's more of like the quorum issue, which I believe is the most concerning piece, which I'm sure other directors here will address too as well. And I won't speak to that for now. Yes, next, CRO Xiaohao.
Yeah, so for the elections night, I've been in contact with Rachel Bishop, who is the programming and promotions manager, and she told me that the Hawk team, which is the Brantford's version of A-Team, wants to run some virtual games before, I guess, the official elections results night begins. So that would be possibly in the format of having breakout rooms and having games. I'm not familiar with the games that she listed, but there's Jackbox, Codenames, Backyard.io. And so if you guys are happy with that, we can go ahead with that. But if you want to turn it into an ownership linkage event, just let me know and we can figure that out.
Because if we want to turn to an ownership linkage event, we could possibly just include some sort of survey, or just, asking people like, hey, like, why did you vote? Or like, why did you want to participate in in the #warrior votes, right? That's just some food for thought. I just thought that it'd be prudent as a board to just have at least preliminary discussion about this, since we haven't done an ownership linkage event yet. Next, Vice Chair Seeley.
I just want to say quickly, or sorry, I want to echo what Vale said quickly, because I do have that concern as well. The other point that I want to bring up quickly is that Bingo with Twan already had a credible legacy of being fun, super interactive. So I don't know if it's in our best interest to assume that we're going to get such a turnout when all the candidates are going to be pretty exhausted and I think are just going to want to know the results. So I'm personally in favor of separating the two, and I would rather just jump on a Zoom call, find out the results like what happened with the by-election, especially if we plan for something, don't meet quorum, which is a very realistic possibility, and then have to go from there. I would rather not run that risk, especially after a campaign like the one we're having now.
Okay, straight down to business. Okay, I'll keep that to note. Yes, Ian.
So just to clarify, the board doesn't approve the results. According to governance process 2J, the board approves the minutes of all general meetings at the next appropriate meeting of the board in the form of a report of all results provided by the chief returning officer. So there's not really any need for that to happen before the 31st when you already have a scheduled board meeting. So I'd suggest the possibility of just adding that to the agenda for the 31st. The results happen when they happen, but there doesn't need to be a meeting struck just for the purpose of receiving that report, because it's you're not required to do that before candidates are informed of who won positions.
Thank you for that clarification, Ian. I did mention that this was just simply for the minutes of the election earlier, but just to kind of give for everyone else, just a brief rundown of why I had the recommendation this to board was just to avoid some of the issues that occurred in the last election, where there was a misconception with the ownership about what the board was able to do, and that simply having everything done and by the Friday, so then nothing can really occur and blow up in our face on the weekend would not be possibly. But if there's no foreseeable risk for that, then we can just simply not have a regularly scheduled board meeting on either the Thursday or the Friday and just wait till the Monday, January 31st. Next, Director Bothwell.
Yeah, I was gonna just echo what Ian said, because based on my understanding, we did need to have an extra emergency meeting, and I also agree with what Vice Chair Finity and Director Vale said, and I'm of the opinion that we should separate the ownership linkage event from the election night.
Okay, then. Well, with that sentiment, then we can just simply go ahead with the CRO's original plan of trying to formulate a games night, perhaps. Just seeing if we can get some people out there and just another elections event. And as Vice Chair mentioned, and just try to make it as a quick and simple night as possible too as well. Straight to the point and get the results out for everyone. I guess with that being said, we can have another discussion about an ownership linkage event with the board on a later meeting, possibly on the January 31st after this is done. But to speak upon the concerns that the board has echoed in terms of reaching quorum, that is not something that me and the CRO are not tuned to. We are very much keeping this cautious, which is precisely the reason why back in, I can't remember, December, we recommended to the board to possibly delay the election, allow for one additional week of campaigning, because we knew that having a fully online campaign would be difficult to just simply push and shove everything in a 2-week time frame, right? But that unfortunately was not to be. So there's always the opportunity for us as a board to have an emergency meeting if we foresee that quorum will not be met, and to extend the voting dates, to either move the voting dates or to just simply extend them as we did in the by-election. But I'm hoping that with our responsibility as stewards of the election, that we together as a board can come together and hopefully just reach out. And unfortunately, we can't pound the payment physically as we did in the by-election, but hopefully virtually. And with the addition of some important referendum questions, as well as other faculty association elections, they can help add to their quorum. So that is the updates on that there. So if there is a foreseen risk, then we can extend the voting dates or move them. I don't know if that's what anyone here on the board has a sentiment of. But if not, then we can go on to finally our next piece of agenda, which is the new business announcements. Anyone have any new business announcements for tonight? Yes, Director Bell.
A couple, so one announcement, so as chair of the board honorarium committee, I'm going to be looking to probably schedule a meeting, probably likely within the next 2 weeks with committee members. So I will be in touch in due course and try to coordinate a time that sort of works for best for everyone. Just as an FYI, it's operations has indicated that they've completed sort of some of their analysis from before, and the board subsequent to that meeting can expect an update as well from me. And then the other item, and I know I talked to Chair Dang about this before, is, I think, and again, public health situation right now is obviously different, but I think, maybe as sort of the return to in-person and the near future and, as public health restrictions allow, that maybe, I think it'd be worthwhile to have like a board sort of social event somewhere, whether we go tubing at the Chicopee or do something together as a board and actually meet each other at some point and based in line, with the current public health restrictions and the situation from that, so on.
Thank you, Director Vale. Yes, Vice Chair Stevie.
Last point, real quick. Today is Martin Luther King Day. I encourage everybody to maybe read an article or listen to a speech. I find him one of the most inspirational human beings to ever walk this earth. So although these are busy and uncertain times, I encourage everybody to at least try and honor his legacy in some way, shape, or form.
Thank you for that, Vice Chair Stevie. I will say that today I had the privilege to listen to his I Have a Dream speech on Spotify, as well as some of his other anecdotes and speeches, and it was quite the order of his time. So thank you for those sentiments. If we have no other new business or announcements, then we can go to adjournment. So can I get a motion to adjourn this meeting? Motion by Director Phillips, seconded by Director Vale. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? I just will want to know, really, is the president of the Bowling Club really that cool? Are you sure about that?
Excuse me.
Interest? Is that a conflict of interest, Director Bothwell? But without further discussion, all those in favor, Director Bothwell.
I approve. Good night, everyone.
Brandon, Bryant.
Oh, sorry, I approve.
Making my apologies for the slip. Director Shando.
He had to leave, I believe, a bit ago.
He left. Okay, thank you. Director Dadriche.
Approve.
Director Phelps.
I approve.
Director Symington. I think he left as well. Director Vale.
I approve.
And Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
So the motion passes unanimous consent without Director Shandok, McCarthy, and Symington. Have a great night, everyone.
Good night, guys.